We're about to start. Hey, just making sure you got into the course okay. Are you can see me in the screen okay?
Yeah, I can see you fine.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you making it into this lesson for our political cartoon analysis. So, were you able to? Well, I'm just going to screen share with you and make sure this works, and I'm going to show you the things I want you to make sure you've looked at. Just take a second. Have you seen this? I'd asked you previously to look at this editorial cartoon interpreting and understanding political cartoons. Have you looked at this PowerPoint before you came to the course?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. And as I'm just scanning through some things, did you have any questions before we move on to our next activity?
Yeah, can you explain exaggeration a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. That's a good question. So exaggeration is making something bigger than what it actually is to show contrast or to criticize. For example, in this image here is showing an image where this province of Quebec is sucking up lots of money from Canada, and it's got a big giant pit. Here's another example of a distortion is perhaps making someone's nose look bigger. You can see on this cartoon character's nose is bigger. Another example would be exaggeration would be this one, right? I'll just come to it right away. This one here of the union demands, basically saying the union demands are so big that they are actually going to hold this airplane or air company down. Again, overemphasizing certain images. So again, exaggeration here is an example of a baby exaggerating the healthcare costs of people ignoring it, and that you can't ignore it. That's going to cost a lot of money down the line. Another example is a train being exaggerated, or the economy bigger than what it actually is, but the idea that it's overshadowing the cartoon and showing the effects of being dominant within the cartoon. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good. And so as we move into the next lesson, we're going to be looking at analyzing political cartoons and a little more detail about it. And so when we go through this, I'll just ask you to respond when you come up to some questions. In the end, you're going to have to be able to remember this. I'm going to ask you what SWAP stands for. But when we analyze political cartoons, first of all, if it doesn't make sense, we want you to use a technique to help you analyze the cartoon. So we use a technique called SWAP. So symbols, words, action, point of view. And by looking at all those things, we should be able to figure out what the cartoonist is trying to say. And so when we look at the first one, symbols. Can you see any symbols on this first one, or do I need to make it a little bigger for you?
Yeah, that's there's a big giant hole that says Afghanistan.
Okay, so they're dumping money into the big giant hole, which is symbolic of what?
Wasting money.
Very good. Okay, so there we go. We got the symbol. And are there any words? So any words on this cartoon that you can see?
Harper Trucking.
Okay, and Afghanistan as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, Afghanistan and Harper Trucking.
Right. So some of the things we want you to do is, again, we use this technique only if you can't figure out what the cartoon means. And sometimes they'll actually, on the little corner, they'll tell you what year it was, or in this, they'll also tell you what cartoon paper it was from. So some of those things will also help you. And so while it's very small, it's important to look at it because it might give you a time frame. So all those things, that's why it's important, again, to write down the different words. Next one is any action. Can you describe any action taking place in this cartoon?
Well, basically, the government is dumping money in Afghanistan in military perspective.
Okay, so the dumping of money into...
Wasting.
Okay, so that's the action taking place. And there's other action. You can see that the engine is running, and you can see that the Prime Minister Harper is looking. So those are all things of action that, again, you might want to put into more detail when you analyze a cartoon. So overall, can you figure out the point of view of the cartoon and the cartoonist is trying to make?
Well, basically, it's just the government wasting money and dumping money in Afghanistan.
Okay.
There's a big giant truck and a big giant load of money.
Okay, good. Exactly. And so, by doing swap, symbols, words, action, point of view, we're able to come up with a understanding of cartoons. And again, we will use cartoons in social studies lots of times, not only in tests, but other times throughout the course. So it's important to be able to analyze them. So in summary, I have a couple questions here for you. How are political cartoons different from other cartoons you see in the paper?
The cartoons in newspapers a little bit more friendly, more it's more like in a joking manner.
Okay.
Political cartoon is more like criticizing a specific party or political party or government or
excellent.
military,
Excellent.
whatever.
Okay, very good, very good. Exactly. And so the second question, how are cartoons different from news articles?
News article, it talks about place, time, and certain people or a particular party or specific things. Cartoon is more in a humor perspective.
Okay, very good.
Not as detailed as an article.
Okay, very good. Exactly. So again, I was going to ask you to remember what SWAP stand for. So do you remember how we analyze cartoons?
Yeah, symbols, words, action, point of view.
Very good. Okay, good. So were there, from this course, from this PowerPoint, again, I'll make it public within the course. I'm leaving you some resources here, and we're going to be able to look at them throughout in the future if you need them. So the Interpreting and Analyzing Cartoons PowerPoint that you looked at before, again, there's the link. If you want to look at other political cartoons, I've left you a nice little link that does current events. And political cartoon quiz I'd like you to finish after we finished here. And if you want to extend your understanding of this material, there's a history of political cartoons, and there is a long history of it within newspapers. And were there any questions at this point?
No, I'm good.
Okay, it's good. So again, part of why we're meeting today is to help you not only prepare and analyze cartoons, but also to get you started on your next activity, which is directly related to us meeting today. So today what you're going to be doing is starting your own cartoon. Now that we've done a little bit of background, a little history in terms of analyzing cartoons and the purpose of them, you're going to be creating your own cartoon. Ultimately, we look at the steps. We want you, number one, find an event or an issue that you're familiar with, perhaps locally, provincially or in your state, or internationally. Perhaps there's something going on in the news that you would want to raise awareness or criticize or bring some insight to it. So first of all, complete a who, what, where, and organize your understanding so that you can put your characters in or whatever words or ideas you want to put in. I'd like you to do a rough draft, and you can do it electronically or hard copy. I've also prepared a link. Pixton is what the cartoon maker I'd like you to use. It's very simple. It provides you with a variety of options, and it's a free account. Remember to use some of the techniques that we've looked at in interpreting and analyzing cartoons, and ultimately you're going to be judged using a rubric. So make sure you go back and look at that rubric so that you know you can hit and get your perfect score. When you've completed your Dropbox, please drop it in the URL. And I've also provided an exemplar for you so that you can see what the general expectations are. Were there any questions from that PowerPoint presentation at this point?
No, that was the only question I asked earlier about the exaggeration, and you explained it pretty good. So
okay, good. So everything is straightforward. No questions. Anything before we head out?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. My screen seems to be acting a little weird here, so I'm not sure. Oh, screen share. That's why I still have my screen share on. And there I am. There I'm back. Here I am. So listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to come and do that lesson with us, an introduction into the cartoon making. I know that by doing the cartoons, you're going to have a greater understanding of what cartoons mean. and it's an important aspect of social studies. So again, I appreciate you taking time, meeting us live here today, and if you don't have any more questions, we're going to sign off for now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.